आप उसमें क्या रखें और क्या न रखें। और तो मैंने कहा, उन्होंने कुछ बातें बताई। आपको पता है, मैंने कहा एक बात के बारे में थोड़ी सी जानकारी है मुझे, बट इस किताब के पहले, ये मेरा कोई दावा टॉल क्लेम नहीं है, लेकिन उषा जी के बारे में गूगल वगल कुछ भी आप करते आपको डिटेल नहीं मिलता। इस किताब के बाद ही वो सारे डिटेल्स आगे शुरू हुए, उनके निजी जीवन, परिवार वगैरह वगैरह। तो साहब बताया उन्होंने कहा अब आपकी विवेक पर है। तो मुझे जिन पर जिनकी जीवनी, जिनकी कथा लिखनी है, उन तथ्य का प्राण नहीं जाए, गौर करें, तथ्य का प्राण नहीं जाए और उस पात्र का सम्मान नहीं जाए। तो लेखक की ये चुनौती हो जाती है कि तथ्य का प्राण आप मत लीजिए। मैंने लिखा उसको, और जिनके बारे में लिखा, मैंने कहा अब अनुष्ठित हो जाए। मैं उसको यूं लिखूंगा कि आपको या आपके पढ़ने वाले को कहीं से यह एहसास नहीं होगा कि इनके व्यक्तित्व में कोई क्षरण है या कोई कमी है ना। उषा जी को जब मैंने किताब लिखने का तय किया तो मैंने पहली मीटिंग में ही उनको एक बात कही थी। बहुत बेबाक हैं वो लोग, गाने गाती हैं बहुत स्ट्रॉट, उसमें कोई बहुत अलाप या लहरी कुछ आपको नहीं मिलेगा, सीधे शुरू, सीधा। तो साहब जैसे भीष्म साहनी अपनी कहानियों में लिखते हैं, वो सीधे शुरू हो जाते हैं, उसमें कोई शास्त्रीय अलाप नहीं होता है कि वो चांदनी रात थी या दोपहरी थी, गर्मी की और ढक्कन, ऐसा सीधे। इस सुजाता जी अपने घर से निकली, एक सेमिनार में खाते हैं, वो सीधा सच प्लेन स्टोरी टेलिंग। मैं मुड़ी हूँ उनका बहुत बड़ा। तो साहब मैंने उनसे कहा कि देखिए, मैं, और वो एक अलग अलहदा कहानी है कि 15 साल लग गए मुझे उनसे अपॉइंटमेंट लेने। क्या मिली? विश्व प्रभाकर जी ने कुछ रिव्यूज में कहा, सच था, कि शरद बाबू की जीवनी आवारा मसीहा जो है लिखने में 15 साल लगे, मुझे उषा जी से मिलने में 15 साल, लिखना तो छोड़ दीजिए। ठीक है, क्योंकि जब मैं उनके स्टूडियो फोन करता था उस समय मैं एक मतलब रनिंग जर्नलिज्म में एक्टिव सक्रिय पत्रकारिता में था, तो मेरी एक हसरत थी कि मैं उषा को क्या इंटरव्यू करूं, क्योंकि बचपन से मैं उनके गानों का बड़ा दीवाना था। बात वो फोन करके बताता है मुझे कि दादा दीदी से बात होगी, वो क्या दीदी बिजी है, बागी है निश्चित हिंदी में, दीदी बिजी है, दीदी को टाइम नहीं। और साहब 15 साल गुजार दिए उन्होंने मेरे, ये कहते हुए कि दीदी बिजी है। एक दिन मैंने 15वें साल में भी फोन किया, मैं करता रहता था, मैं करता चला जाता था, और मैं दूसरों का इंटरव्यू करके आता था, लेकिन उषा जी से मैं मिल नहीं पाता था। अंजन दास नाम था वो मैनेजर साहब का, तो मुझे 15 वर्षों तक, लेकिन अंजन दास जो अंगद बने हुए थे मेरे सामने, तो वो उनका अंगद बनना भी मुझको बाद में समझ आया कि वो बाधा क्यों उत्पन्न कर रहे थे अंजन दास। ईश्वर कहीं कहीं आपको जहां रोकते हैं सुनैना जी, तो ईश्वर का उसके भावों झल्लाते हैं, दुखी होते हैं, भाग्य को कोसते हैं, लेकिन नहीं, वो ईश्वर आपके लिए एक व्यवस्था कर रहे हैं जिसमें कि आपको सही मुकाम दे, आपको दुख होता है, क्यों नहीं उसको समझ में पा रहा है, कौन सी ऐसी बहुत बड़ी बात है। लेकिन एक बार जब 15वें साल में जब मैंने फोन किया स्टूडियो में, तो मैंने कहा, मैं तो डरा रहता था अंजन दादा से, अंजन दास जी ने फोन किया कि अंजन दादा नमस्ते, मैं विकास ऊपर गया। तो मैं थोड़ा अंजन दास के नाम से नर्वस भी हो जाता था कि ये मना करेगा फिर मुझको, कि फिर लौट आएगा, तो मुझको लगा कि शायद फर्स्ट फ्लोर पे हो गए। बहुत बुरा सोचने का भी साहस नहीं था मुझे अंजन दास के लिए कि पता नहीं दुष्ट क्या करेगा। अरे साहब वो ऊपर है, तो मैंने कहा फर्स्ट फ्लोर पर है, तो नहीं वो फाइनल फ्लोर पर। अब मुझे लग रहा था, मैं ऐसी मनस्थिति में था कि ये मैं खुश हो जाऊं इस बात कि रास्ते का काटा गया कि मैं दुखी हूं, लेकिन मुझे लगा नहीं, किसी के निधन पर दुखी ही होना मुनासिब। ठीक है, खैर उन्होंने उन दिन सज्जन ने उठाया, उनके स्टूडियो के मैनेजर ने, उन्होंने मुझसे कहा कि देखिए, मैंने थोड़ी सी दास्तान बताई उनको, दुख बड़ी दास्तान, 15 वर्षों की कथा। उन्होंने कहा भाई इस आदमी का तो गजल पेशेंस है, जवाब ही नहीं है, जब जिद्दी आदमी है। तो है, उन्होंने कहा मैं आपको दीदी का डायरेक्ट नंबर दे देता हूँ, अब आप और दीदी डील करें।
इसमें मेरा ऑफिस कहीं। मैंने कहा ग्रेट। लगा समय लगा थोड़ा, उषा जी चूंकि अनजान नंबर देख रही थी, नहीं उठाई, लेकिन जब एक बार उठाई तो मैंने बात की, कहा कि हाँ बिल्कुल, क्योंकि उन्होंने कहा कि मुझे उम्मीद ही नहीं थी कि कोई हिंदी वाला मेरी जीवनी लिखने के लिए आगे आएगा। मुझे तो ये लगता था कि कभी कोई जिंदगी मेरी लिखेगा तो अंग्रेजी वाला कोई लिखेगा, लेकिन एक हिंदी वाला आया है और बिहार वाला। मैंने कहा कि हाँ बिहार के लोगों में कुछ है खास बात। तो इंसान भी यही आया था, फाहियान भी यही आया था, बिहार से ही अपनी यात्रा शुरू किया था। सारे दुनिया के दीवाने यहीं से आते हैं और दुनिया भर में यहीं के दीवाने दुनिया में जाते हैं। तो साहब शिव सागर राम गुलाम मॉरिशस गए और वहाँ के राष्ट्रपिता बने, या कमला डॉक्टर कमला विशेषण जो त्रिनिदाद सुरीनाम की प्रधानमंत्री बने, एक आरा के थे शिव सागर राम गुलाम और उनके लड़के नवीन राम गुलाम, वो भी प्राइम मिनिस्टर बने, और कमला विशेषण जो त्रिनिदाद की प्राइम मिनिस्टर थी, बक्सर की थी। एनीवे, तो खैर तो उषा जी तैयार हुई और कि ठीक है हम लोग बीच बीच में आप करता आ जाएंगे और हम लोग किस्तों में बात करेंगे। जब मैं पहली बार मिला तो मैं जीवनी कथात्मक जीवनी के बारे में कह रहा हूँ, मैंने कहा कि देखिए एक बात मैं कहना चाहता हूँ कि मैं अभिनंदन ग्रंथ नहीं लिखने आया हूँ, क्योंकि आमतौर से जीवनी साहित्य में एक ये खतरा रहता है कि उस व्यक्तित्व से इतने मुदित रहते हैं लिखने वाले कि मतलब ये भगवान है, ये देवता है, इनको चरणाकृत किए कि क्या इनका नमन करें। तो मैंने कहा देखिए सारी दुनिया जानती है कि उषा वो तो एक कमल है, मान लीजिए सपोज करिए वो एक कमल है, कमल की पंखड़ियां हैं, लेकिन उसमें किसी को रुचि नहीं है, या हमारे उसमें किसी को रुचि नहीं है। मैंने कहा उनसे कि रीडर को इससे कोई रुचि नहीं है कि आपने कितने कौन से सब सुनते हैं, रोज सुनते हैं भाई, आए दिन सुनते हैं, तो रीडर आकृष्ट उससे नहीं होगा। रीडर ये जानना चाहता है, पाठक ये जानना चाहता है कि इस कमल के नीचे का जो कीचड़ है वो क्या है। वो की सॉन्ग्स हैं आपके, ये गाने हैं, बड़े हिट हैं वगैरह वगैरह। तो साहब मैंने कहा देखिए अगर आप इस पर राजी हो तो हम शुरू करें, क्योंकि हम आपकी उस टीचर के बारे में सिर्फ हम नवनीत लेपन नहीं करें। हमारी आदरणीय गार्जियन अभिभावक श्रीमती नासरा शर्मा जी आ गई है, हम लोग जोरदार तालियों से इनका अभिनंदन करें। ग्रेट ऑथर ऑफ हिंदी, हमारे साहित्य की शान है नासरा जी। ट्रैफिक जाम की वजह से इनकी गाड़ी रास्ते में थोड़ी देर हो गई, तो मैंने यही कहा उषा उद्धव जी से, कैसे हैं आप लोग, ठीक। तो मैंने यही उषा से कहा कि लोगों को इंटरेस्ट है आपके कमल के नीचे, कमल है, मृणाल है, फिर नीचे जो कीचड़ है, हम कीचड़ के बारे में ज्यादा पसंद उठाएंगे। ये नहीं कि कीचड़ उड़ाएंगे, क्योंकि कीचड़ के बीच भी रहकर कमल की पंखड़ी पर कोई कीचड़ का एक बूंद भी नहीं जाता है ना। तो उन्होंने कहा यस बिल्कुल, और उसके ठीक नेक्स्ट ट्रिप में उन्होंने मुझसे कहा कि मैं अपसेट हूँ क्योंकि मैंने कुछ ऐसी बातें मुझे कहनी चाहिए जो मैंने आज तक जीवन में किसी को नहीं कहा है। और सचमुच ऐसा लगता है जैसे चर्च में कन्फेशन रूम में जाकर कोई कन्फेस करता है, वैसा कन्फेशन। और तो मैं ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि जीवनी साहित्य में देखिए एक लेखक जो है वह उसको उस तरह एक हिप्नोटिस्ट का भी काम करता है, वो सम्मोहित भी करता है अपने पात्र को, ताकि वो पात्र कहे कि भाई बहुत ज्यादा खत्म कर, जो सारी कहानी है आपकी वो मैं उसको मैं लिखूंगा और वो राजी हुई, और वो राजी हुई। और उसके बाद उल्लास की नाव जो किताब वो तैयार हुई और उसको फिर उसका अंग्रेजी तर्जुमा आया और वो सफलता उसकी हुई। लेकिन मैं फिर आपसे ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि जीवन के कीचड़ को अगर हम नहीं जान पाए, पतझड़ को नहीं जान पाए, अगर हमने वसंत की हवा की खुशबू को हम नहीं समझ पाए, हमने नहीं जाना कि वसंत के किस दिन प्रकृति अपनी कूची से फूलों में रंग भरती है, हमने अगर नहीं जाना, ये फागुन है, हमने अगर नहीं जाना कि फागुन का वो 3 दिन वो गजब का तूफानी दिन होता है। हमारे महान गीतकार आदरणीय बुद्धनाथ मिश्रा जी हमारे अंदर कहेंगे, आप ये गीतों में कहते भी हैं कि तो साहब वो 3 प्रचंड दिन जिसमें कि बहुत तीव्र हवा बहती है फगुनहट में, तो सारे सूखे पत्तों को वृक्ष से झाड़ देती है और तब नए पल्लव के निकलने की तैयारी शुरू होती है। फिर आकाश में मेघ आता है।
Take stock of the situation, we have to think about it. Probably we have to think of our development more. So what we are doing, what we are doing, is it really necessary? Is this how we should live? Can we go back to nature? Like Wordsworth said, we can't go back to nature quite obviously. But at least mentally, can we retain at least that rural culture? Whatever was good in the rural phase, whatever was good in the rural mentality, can we at least retain that even if though we are living in the city? The last one would be one for all and all for one. That is mostly the rural motto. At least that, can we at least retain that, though we are living here, as Arun Kamalji was saying, we are all basically from villages. So that motto is something we can retain if we really want the rural space to be alive, though physically we are all in the cities. Thank you.
हमारी अगली वक्ता है महामानताएं, अरुणाचल प्रदेश की महामानताएं, कवयित्री और उपन्यासकार, वे पूर्व पत्रकार और अरुणाचल प्रदेश यूनियन ऑफ वर्किंग जर्नलिस्ट के अध्यक्ष हैं। उनकी पहली पुस्तक अरुणाचल प्रदेश द हिडन लैंड को राज्य का वेरियर एल्बन अवार्ड मिला था। उन्होंने वर्ल्ड वाइड फंड फॉर नेचर इन द ईस्टर्न हिमालयन बायोडायवर्सिटी हॉटस्पॉट्स प्रोग्राम के साथ काम किया और अरुणाचल प्रदेश लोक सेवा आयोग की सदस्य रहे। 2011 में उन्हें पद्मश्री और 2017 में अंग्रेजी में लिखी गई उनकी किताब द ब्लैक हिल के लिए साहित्य अकादमी पुरस्कार से सम्मानित किया गया। महामानताएं।
Madam has said, there are pros and cons. I come from a very rural background, Arunachal Pradesh. My hometown is Pasighat. We say town. Recently I was editing a book called In Search of the Indian Village by Aleph Book Publishers. So I did a little bit of research. A village is bigger than a hamlet and it's smaller than a town. I googled my hometown and it popped up, but now it has a municipality and it's even designated as a city. So I think the previous speakers, which is very interesting about the Nikale regarding, transit, spaces, first and second space, what is happening to the Indian village. Because our founding fathers we had were, Gandhiji was, villages are the soul of a nation. If the Indian village perishes, so will the nation perish. We know Dr. Ambedkar had very different views on an Indian village because it was the den of casteism, it was inequality. So there were many things that were thought about. I also feel, as writers, we return to the village or rural spaces as our source material. We write about villages, but we don't actually live in the village. If you live in a village, you know that either village almost equated with indigeneity or environment, nature, उसमें ये बात आ जाता है, either you're very protective, just like with tribal communities, or you're very romantic. But if you actually live in a village, the reality may be quite different. So to be able to transmit that in writing, I think people like, say, Vijayanand, I read one of his stories called So Many Hitlers, and it's about rural Rajasthan, but there are these very strong, agriculturalist brothers who are going to buy a tractor, and then what happens on the road. So people from the villages are also not pure and pristine, वैसा भी नहीं है. There are things to consider, because the human element is the human element in the village or the cities. So I think to go forward, like Madam Ronalini was saying, if we can keep that idea, that character of a rural space and what it meant to many of us to begin with as places of origin where you were born, and the place where you might return to, the Indian village, your home place. If we could keep that and all the goods that it embodies, originally embodied, then it might be worth keeping the idea of a village alive. Why I say alive? Because in the global world today, you will find villages are merging with cities. It's inevitable. There's no going back to that second space or third space, it's in transit. In Arunachal itself also, to be specific, the transit is already happening with mainly, let's say, the weapon of language. People in the villages are using a new language. The mother tongue is no longer used for writing. So already it is changing. It has gone beyond transit also. People are using a new language. Then there is religion. The religious aspects are coming in with globalization, with new frontiers, new exposures, and new knowledge systems being introduced from all over the world. So obviously it is all being changed. Our chairperson, our chairman, Arun Kamalji, has very rightly said, villages are electrified and the mystery of darkness is no longer there. I think that is very poetic. I would like to leave more for audience participation and conclude here for now.
Mr. Raghav Chandra. Raghav Chandra, a former civil servant, is the author of the critically acclaimed novels Scent of the Game and Kali's Daughter. Editor of The Eternal Wisdom of the Tribes, he also writes on management and sustainability issues and has a monthly column in Business World magazine. वे ऐप कंसल्ट के संस्थापक और सीईओ हैं, सोसाइटी फॉर कल्चर एंड एनवायरनमेंट के अध्यक्ष हैं और भोपाल लिटरेचर एंड आर्ट फेस्टिवल के निदेशक हैं, जिसके 4 सफल संस्करण संपन्न हो चुके हैं. आप हार्वर्ड यूनिवर्सिटी यूएसए के एडवर्ड एस मेसन फेलो और दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी के पूर्व छात्र. श्री राघव चंद्र.
On the dais, literature is born out of human sensibilities, experiences, and perceptions. It cannot ever be alienated from the environment and the reality from which it builds itself into a narrative. So when we were largely a rural society, rural spaces found more than their share in the stories that were told, because the authors had more experience of the rural areas than of the urban areas. Today, when we have urbanized largely, with almost 35 to 40% of our population living in the cities and contributing to about 75% of our GDP, and exposed to the global ideas, it is but natural that rural spaces should get proportionately less attention. But by speaking about vanishing rural spaces, there is a sense of anguish, as if we are ruminating and viewing the fact that we have lost these spaces. I would go and take a very contrarian sort of position by saying that we should not unreasonably idolize rural spaces and try and draw a dichotomy between the rural and the non-rural spaces as one being good and the other being bad, and so on. For the writer, it is the story that defines the trajectory of its protagonists. and there cannot be a value distinction between rural and urban. I would not favor the importance of rural over the urban unless it is seminal and germane to the plot and to the story. Ultimately, every human being is important. And it is not because of the fact that they live either in a rural space or in an urban space, but because of their acts, because of their emotions, because of the interactions with people, the society, the nature, the environment, and the story that has to come out of them or that they have to tell. It is the story that drives and determines the value of literature. Any story can be enticing and gripping, no matter where it is set, as long as it resonates with the reader. Only then will it carry meaning and heft. That having been said, we have to accept that in our minds, particularly in India, we have been divided between rural and urban, not just in terms of sociological or geographical silos, but we have, as one of the speakers mentioned, perhaps because of our respect for Gandhiji and his propounding the concept of the village Swaraj, that life in villages is simple and people living in villages are meek and humble, unsullied by the greed and complexities of urban world, that we equate the rural areas with poverty, with a lack of riches, and perhaps for that reason with higher values. Sada Jivan Uch Vichar. This is not entirely true. When it comes to crime or when it comes to other social malpractices, they are as rampant in rural areas, whether it's infanticide, female infanticide, caste oppression, aggression towards women, as they are in urban areas. That also having been said, I would say, and sort of further propound that it is entirely the plot of the story which matters. Whether it is R.K. Narayan's Malgudi days, irrespective of where that has been set, it is the storyline which is interesting. The storyline which connects all the dots of the people, the landscape, the customs, and so on. Whether it is Premchand's Godan or Raja Rao's Kanthapura or Mahashweta Devi's writings, all of them are basically plot, narrative, story, character based. The rural or the urban is important, but only peripherally. Again, it is the characters, and that is why it was made into such an evocative trilogy of films, because the characters speak. It is not that they are located here or whether they are located there. Writings, they're all character driven. My own book, Kali's Daughter, I would say, which is set in an urban setting, has as much about social issues as any story written in the rural, about the rural areas. Because it talks of a Dalit girl who in a modern setting joins the Indian Foreign Service and has to face caste-based exploitation, which is not burning of a house, which is not rape, which is not being thrown out or evicted from your residential village, but is more psychological. It is in the nature of the discussions that take place. It is in the nature of, it's in the nuances that are conveyed in the Lal Bahadur Shastri Academy when she's sitting for dinner or when she's playing badminton with her colleagues, that convey the level of exploitation that caste can have on a person, and psychological effects can be as damaging and as traumatic as more physical acts of oppression. Mulk Raj Anand's Untouchable was set in a cantonment town of Bula Shah. It is no less a tale of enticing and provocative, full of emotions and a theme of social justice. Slapping an untouchable who is expected to shout that here is a Dalit, here is a Chamar who's present, an uninvestigated sexual assault, and the sheer pompousness of the elite. Which was part of our textbook, which resonates with me even till today, and Arun Kamal Saab and the other writers here would be more familiar with it, which is Har Ki Jeet. Now a story like Har Ki Jeet is a simple story. It's a 2.5-page story which talks of Baba Bharti and his love for his horse Sultan. Daku Khadak Singh likes the horse and steals the horse. And then he goes away with the horse. But when he's leaving, Baba Bharti just tells him one thing. किसी को ये मत बताना इस घटना के बारे में, क्योंकि लोगों का नहीं तो गरीबों के प्रति विश्वास उठ जाएगा. And when he finally ruminates and reflects on what has transpired and why Baba Bharti has said this, he's so upset with what he has done that he returns the horse. And both of them, Baba Bharti and Khadak Singh, they have shed tears at the same spot, and it's a very, very, very touching story. दोनों के आंसुओं का उसी भूमि की मिट्टी पर परस्पर मिलाप हो गया. Now, this is a simple story. It could have been set in a cantonment or in the army cantonment areas. It could have been set in a village. The rural or the urban is not material. It is the storyline, it is the characters, it is the human emotions which are important. And that there are no prohibited zones, no blackouts, no no-go territories. Stories in literature have to be from the heart. They have to be felt, not seen. Thank you.
Also for what they're worth. I run the risk of being a non-fiction writer in a panel largely of fiction writers and poets. So I think the village travels with us wherever we go. I think that's one of the things that I've learned in our own travels and professional career. Whether it's because I have often written about conflict in my books, conflict and the impact of conflict on women, on communities, on village groups, and how resilient people are, especially women, when they have to cope with it. And the stories that emerge from these tellings, from the stories that emerge from the listening, are the stories that perhaps I don't reflect as much as novelists such as Mitra Fukan, Arupa Patangya Kulita, Eastern Kire, and others who are all celebrated authors, writers in English from the Northeast, Peninsula Ao, whose classic is These Hills Called Home. They reflect. I try and do it in a documented, a flowing narrative, but theirs is a more popular genre. But through myth and reality, through grief and joy, we endure, we capture, and we engage with these stories. It's just like all our lives. We've all come from somewhere else. I am certainly not a resident of Delhi. I just come yesterday from Shillong. Mama has come from Itanagar, and all of us have come from different places. We carry our stories with us. And our stories change, just our lives change. Our friendships change. And the nature of the village, as we've heard from our previous speakers, also has changed. As they come into cities, but the village still comes with them. The other way that I think I was going to say that instead of vanishing, we should say transiting rural landscapes, because that is the nature of our world, of our country, of the places we live. Language also travels with people. That's an oxymoron. But I'll tell you one story, which I found really fascinating. When I was traveling in Nagaland and then into Myanmar, Burma, I found there is a language, a patois, which is called Nagamese. Now, it's not a recognized language, but it is a language that 16 tribes of Nagaland speak because they can't understand each other in their own dialect. So to speak to each other, they have to use Nagamese, which is a mixture of Assamese and the local dialect. Now that language actually traveled with insurgents and rebels who were walking to China in the 60s and 70s to get training in camps. That language is now spoken across hundreds of kilometers of Myanmar. They aren't active in such actions anymore. The language is still there. The other way it travels is by river. One of my books that's coming out later this year, hopefully, is a travelogue on the Brahmaputra, on the Tibet, the Bay of Bengal. I've been privileged to do that. And you find that whether you're in Assam or the cusp of Assam and Bangladesh, you find that there's a language called, a dialect called Bhatia, or Bhatia. And people say, he's speaking in Bhatia. And you'll find on either side of the border, this language is spoken. It doesn't mean that the people are nationals of each other's countries. It means that the language has transgressed, has traveled over boundaries because it is traveled by a river which no boundary can change. A musician that Assam has known certainly in the last 100 years is Dr. Bhupen Hazarika. Entirely all his compositions were rooted either in the river or its environment or in the villages, because he himself came from a very small village until he was discovered as a talented young singer when he was 10 years old. He came with him and he brought it not just to Assam, but he took it to Bengal and to the entire landscape of India through Bollywood. And I think that is something that we cannot appreciate enough. Because even though we say that villages are vanishing, and they are, we find that the stories of villages, theatre, cinema, how many cinemas, films do you see that are not located at least in some area in villages? These are also part of our visual culture, the languages we understand, the appreciation that we show to literature. I currently moved from Delhi after nearly 40 years, and I live now in a small town called Shillong, small compared to Delhi and many other places you come from. It's a growing town, but each locality has got a local council. It's not the government, it's called Darbar Shillong. And our friends from Shillong and Assam will know it. The Darbar is made up of communities with a headman, and they inform you when there will be local meetings, when there will be a local cleanup, when there will be things that the community does together. And you find that also in other parts of the region, other parts of the Northeast. I think that, ma'am, you spoke very touchingly of the vanishing villages. I remember a story of a friend of mine who's an editor in Nepal, and he's also a very avid trekker. So he said, one thing that I've noticed in my treks in the Himalaya is that where the tracks vanish, old tracks vanish, the village has gone. There's no way, if people are not moving on that track, then it has been abandoned. Same thing in Uttarakhand and other places. People have migrated to the cities. So the village may have died, but the people have moved. The people are still alive.
Bodo writer and a former president of Bodo Sahitya Sabha, is currently the convener of Sahitya Academy's Bodo Advisory Board. He writes short stories, plays and poems in Assamese and English, apart from Bodo. He has acted in Bodo and Assamese films, is a stage dramatist, has worked as a casual announcer for All India Radio Guwahati. His writings have appeared in national and local newspapers, and he retired as a manager from the Reserve Bank of India, Guwahati. He has received several awards and honors, including the M. Ibrahim Ali Literary Award, the Assam Sports and Cultural Award, and the Jananeta Bhimbar Deori Award. Mr. Taran.
Honorable Chairperson and panelists and august gathering, my dear friends, participants, and officials of Sahitya Academy, New Delhi. I must thank Sahitya Academy for inclusion of my name in the panel discussion, especially on the topic, they are vanishing rural space in Indian literary creation. It is a very tough topic. I don't say that I'll be very confident to say about the topics. Only as Satya Academy allotted me 10 minutes. Just in a nutshell, I would like to narrate some my writings shortly, what I find. So I am hailing from a downtrodden tribal community from Assam. I think you have heard Kokrajhar. Now then, our side, Goalpara district now divided into Kokrajhar district. It is a tribal dominated, Boro dominated area. So since I am hailing from a rural area, especially our community actually is a very painful community. Education and other things, economically backward area. Since we are coming from that area, as I understand the meaning of the above subject means the emergence of global influence in all tradition, Indian literary forms, the traditional life, customs, beliefs and social picture, this appearing in literature due to outbreak of modern plots, character and form of literature. What I understand. Because when I was a child, a small boy, studying in the LP school, lower primary school, my grandmother, grandfather, they used to sit in the floor at the night time. There was no light, nothing. So they are telling some ballads and stories and folk tales. They just called young boys and girls and one Gaura village headmen in the courtyard. They are sitting 2 hours, 3 hours. They used to tell the stories. Hundreds of stories, hundreds of ballads, hundreds of folk tales. They are telling. The story of monkey and fox, the story of pig and dog, the story of this tiger and a monkey, like this. So it was like a creation of literature, actually. That time, only the spoken words, only telling these stories, nobody wants to write. But in letter spirit, some writers come out, they used to write, they used to collect these stories, and it is transformed as literature. But this literature now, Boro, as you know, now it is a schedule of the Indian Constitution. From 2023, the Boro language has been recognized in the 8th schedule of the Indian Constitution. And we are very lucky, this language read up to university level. And it is one of the official languages of Assam. So the reasons may be behind global impact on socio-economic condition in our day-to-day life. I understand. Digital platform and role of artificial intelligence, people wants new way of life. Because the allied group of people, even the students community, they are not willing to stay in the villages due to so and so reasons. They are not willing to serve the village people. They just take education and they will just migrate to town and cities. Assam. But our language, or missing Rabha like this, these languages are quite different. Their pronunciation is different. In Manipur, there are so many tribes other than Meitei. I know. So this language, actually we have seen composite in English only. Whatever you go in the church, then they used to just something in English. That I know. That is very difficult to narrate the situation. Cross-credited impact on our social life and influence of digital literature. Immediate urbanization transformation from village to city, town for better livelihood and employment. To seek better opportunities in health care, production of modern food grains and techniques of new profitable technology in the agricultural sector, using power tiller and machines in the old pattern of agricultural concept. Whenever you go, that time you recall, there were no medical, there were no pharmacy. People believe mantra. People believe this Ayurvedic people. There's just something mantras and tantras. Then just they will give medical treatment like this. This is the transformation. To seek drinking water, it is already done. Forgetting old methods of handloom and textile concept along with artisan and mechanical techniques. Emancipation of oral literature, tradition, ballads and proverbs, and followed modern writing system to attract a new generation based on e-learning, e-education, e-teaching concept in the modern globalized era.